Do it.
All right, it looks like we've actually got a couple people already waiting.
Cool.
Welcome, everyone.
Nice, nice. Okay, so then this is on Facebook now. Are we broadcasting to Facebook too?
I'm gonna take a quick peek and find out.
Yeah, we're getting some more people. Welcome, everybody. We're just waiting a couple minutes to get some more people in and get everything up on the website. So just hang tight.
All right, I think we're gonna go live on Facebook now.
Cool. I don't know how to tell if it's working or not.
That's still linking up.
Gotcha. We should get some like background music. We need some like waiting music.
Next time. Okay.
Or somebody said we're on. Yeah.
Yes. I see us fetching video stream. Excellent.
Cool. Well, this is going to be fun. I've never used Facebook Live or anything, so we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
I'm seeing us frozen on Facebook Live, but I'm just hoping that this will. Oh, here we go.
Yeah. Nice. Cool. So we're getting some more people in. Yeah, do you want to wait another minute? Do you want to go ahead and get started?
I think we can get started. So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming and joining us today. We're really excited about this. This is our first time doing something like this, and thrilled that we can bring things directly to you. And we welcome at any point any questions, any thoughts. We encourage you to use the chat, anything that comes up, because we want to be here for you right now. So I want to just do a quick introduction once again. I'm Monika Sharma. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and the owner at NVision U Holistic Psychotherapy Services in downtown Chicago. I'm guessing the majority of you have already heard of us and know us. Hopefully you even know us personally. And we would love to get to know you if the need arises.
Absolutely.
Josh?
So yeah, I am Josh Waters. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and the clinical director at NVision U. So I have a couple of interns that I'm working with in our practice doing couples therapy, and then just working with everybody on the team to help provide the best quality services we can. So that's kind of my role. And this is kind of a product of both Monika and I wanting to venture more into the online space because neither of us are particularly comfortable with it. So any feedback you guys provide is going to be great. But yeah, so we wanted to develop this series and be able to share some of the experiences that we've had so far. And yeah, that's why we're here.
Yes, and I have to say these are very unusual times. It doesn't need to be probably said again, but we want to take advantage in some ways too, to be able to reach more people than we typically would have. This is giving us, in some ways, you know, a catalyst to do something that we've always wanted to do anyway. So I would like to get a sense first of who is here to join us for the pandemic pause today. I'm going to send a poll out. And in answering this question, I'd like to invite you to also, with each of these polls, to take a pause, to take a minute. We'll keep these up for about 60 seconds and really reflect on what brings you in today. And we're going to do this a few times through our talk. Oh, let me see. Here we go. I see some results are coming in. This is really wonderful. It gives us a chance to see who we're talking to, and we're going to have an opportunity to also hear more from you. What are the things that most interest you and what you'd like to see us discuss? So I'm going to go ahead. I don't know if there's a way to share this, but I'll go ahead and read to you that 30% of you are interested in learning more about mental health and relationships in general. It's like 60%, which is the majority, interested in learning more about mental health and relationships, particularly related to this pandemic and the quarantine. 25% are interested in other topics related to the pandemic, such as finances, fitness. 14% mental health provider, and looks like 36% are in therapy and you work with a mental health provider. I'm going to end the poll. And oh, I can share results right over here.
Look at
so you can
that.
Just take a moment to see who you're keeping company with today.
Yeah, and it makes sense that everybody's here to learn more about the pandemic as it relates to mental health. That's kind of why we also titled this the pandemic pause, to get some of the information out there that we already have and that we're already working on with our clients. But specifically now that we're all in this pandemic space, it just adds an extra level of pressure and vulnerability and susceptibility to issues that we may not usually experience. So
yeah, I think a lot of this we haven't even had to think about before. So we really don't have a roadmap for a lot of this. We're just trying to figure it out also together, because, just like so many people who are out there, so many people who see therapists, as therapists, we also are, in very new territory and going through many of the same emotions, human emotions that everyone, not just you, but really people all over the world are going through, which is just, mind-boggling, really, how connected we all really are to be in this together. So it's both crazy, scary, and like really phenomenally fantastic that we are in this together.
Right. Well, so, like Monika mentioned, as therapists, we're humans too. And so we're experiencing pretty much the same dynamics and issues that our clients are, because we're all human and we're all going through this shared experience together. We kind of wanted to know from you guys also what your greatest concerns are right now around how the pandemic has affected your life, or how just really what the major stressors are for you. So we have another poll that we're going to put up here now too, just to get a sense of what particular topics or things you are experiencing the most stress with.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, just to follow up with what Josh is saying before I post the poll, is that this is really one of the things we want to do with today's session in particular, being our very first session, our launch session, is to have this interaction with you, this dialogue, to make this the most relevant. And we have that, our aim is to do this once a week and to really invite people even from our community who may have some expertise in certain areas to be able to speak to these issues. We've already talked to a few people in the community who can really add an added and valuable input around things like families, finances, health and wellness, things like that. So again, we get to create this each week, and that's going to be with your help. So I'm going to go ahead and post the poll now. Just give me a moment so that I can. Okay, and again, like before, as you're looking at this list, take a moment, just take a minute to pause and reflect on what are some of the things that have been challenging during this time. Pick up to 3 items because you want to be able to really see what stands out the most and what's the most commonly shared amongst you.
Mm-hmm. This might be seen through what you tend to scroll through on Instagram and like, whether it's funny memes about dating, or if you're picking up the phone every day to talk to your friends about somebody you've lost, or how hard it is having lost your job. Like, it's really about seeing the impact on your everyday functioning. And that tells you what's the most important or what's most lacking for you right now.
Josh, I'm noticing as we're doing these polls and taking this moment, it's sort of a nice moment to also breathe myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been talking for the last, 6-7 hours straight, and I think this is the quietest I've been all day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. I think most of you have answered by now, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and I'll share the results. So it looks like, yeah, health concerns for yourself or others, which shouldn't be a surprise, is the #1 concern at 56%.
And then followed right up with productivity and motivation, that being a big one.
Well, I see also, yeah, loneliness and isolation at 52%. So let's take a look at some of the other areas too. Navigating relationships and dating in quarantine. We're actually planning to talk about that next week. So that'll be, I think, just so much to say about that. And then financial worry and work instability, loss and grief. Parenting.
It's cool to see that most of these, first of all, that we have answers all across the board, but then most of them are around, most of the responses cumulatively are about relationships. Because even loss and grief, those are things that we're grieving, the relationships with people, but also the relationships with our commute and the relationships with getting our daily Starbucks and the relationship that we have with the doorman that we don't get to see at work anymore. I really miss my Sunday doorman, I'll be honest. He was the best part of my Sunday, and I haven't seen him in, almost 2 months. So even that's a loss of some sort. So yeah. So I guess kind of going into the same line, so we know what our concerns are and what we're planning to talk about. We'll have different topics each week. But what are some of the negative feelings that are coming up for you as a result of these issues? So we're going to post another poll here too. I want you to select just the 2 most common emotions that you can connect with surrounding the loss or the financial worry or your relationship like satisfaction, whatever it is that's the most important concern. What are the negative feelings that are coming up around that?
Okay. And again, I'm going to go ahead and post this, but take a moment, just take a minute for yourself first and just really take a deep breath, be in that space so that we could really capture what it is, but also just to take that breath for yourself. I think that's so important right now. All right.
And I should clarify too, these are all the negative emotions that we've posted. I just want to know mostly the top 2 negative emotions that you're experiencing. And then we'll look at the other side too, in case you're having a different experience.
I see the results coming in. I'll share them with all of you. I see anxiety is by far the #1 thing, which is understandable. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now and share the results.
Yeah.
So
we knew anxiety was going to be all the way up there. That's the most commonly diagnosed mental health disorder out of pretty much the world. I mean, I think it's safe to say the world, that anxiety is the top concern by a huge margin, and that can cover so much. But underneath that, we see all of the wide array of different feelings that we're having. Some people are more sad than scared. Some people are more lonely than angry. But we're all experiencing something that is negative, and it's not fun. But that's just to kind of show the wide array of how everybody is coping with this, and we'll kind of break that down further too.
One thing I noticed is apathy is not high, but it's higher than things like grief and mistrust and animosity. So that's, and sadness also. So I just thought that was interesting. Okay. So, let's just take a few minutes to talk about some of the negative emotions that we're having and some of the reasons why we're having that, and why anxiety is the #1 emotion that we've got up there. It's not surprising. It's one of the main reasons why people come to seek therapy services in the first place. It's a lot of that uncertainty of, what can I expect? What if something goes wrong? What if people don't like me? What if, I mean, like anything in terms of like this fear that, you know, here's where I feel things ought to be, and this is where I feel I am, and like this huge gap that exists, or this is the way that I feel the world ought to be like, and this is where I feel like the world is, and this huge gap. And it's that gap that can cause a lot of these feelings of anxiety and this unrest and uncertainty and not knowing what to expect. And my goodness, of all times, like we are in the middle of this pandemic, and even our leaders and experts don't know where this is heading. And we're looking to them for some guidance. We're looking and waiting, and there's just no answers right now. So, you know, a lot of just a lot of anxiety in general. Anxiety is not necessarily a bad thing either. You know, it's something that can be helpful for us and wake us up to things that we need to look at and indicate to us, you know, we need to take care of, I need to take care of myself right now. I'm feeling a little kind of off the charts. Like if I think about anxiety being a bell curve, and if we have too low of anxiety, it tends to hurt us in terms of motivation and investment in things. We're less willing to take risks. It's just not that important to us. And if we have it too high, then it paralyzes us, and we don't tend to be able to be productive and see things clearly. We tend to spin, and then we want to avoid those things. It's too much. So some level of anxiety is actually good if you think about that bell curve, because that level of anxiety at the top of the bell curve, that moderate level, helps us to move forward. It helps to keep our eyes open. It helps us to stay engaged. It helps us to really also tune into what matters. And right now, with this high level of anxiety that we're feeling, we are in touch with so much of what matters right now in terms of our health, the people that we love and their health, in terms of our relationships and feeling connected to people, maybe even going out and wanting to meet people and not being able to do that in as free of a way. And in terms of our own selves, who am I in this? Where's my space? How do I exist in this?
Yeah, well, and I think the cool part about what you were explaining with the difference between like what we want to be doing or what our expectations are, and then what we're actually doing, that's cognitive dissonance in like the psychological terms, which is really what's happening to us all. We have this idea of what we want our life to look like, and then we have what our life actually looks like and what we're able to accomplish. And it's that distance that's being presented as anxiety or in grief or in all these different negative emotions. Some people are angry that I can't be doing these things. Some people are sad that I can't be doing these things. And it sucks. There's no better way to say it, but it sucks that we have to realign our expectations around what we can do right now. You know, we can't go outside and do all the things that we used to do. We can't interact with our friends and family in public places or at restaurants or doing a host of all these other things. These are all of the things we want to do. Here's what we can do. And in the middle, there is also going to be some room for negative emotions. So like the purpose of this whole thing is taking a moment to reflect on that and giving some space and some validity to say it's okay to be this much angry or this much sad or this much anxious about all the change that is coming with us. It's change that causes discomfort. If everything looked the same today as it did a year ago today, we would all be feeling wildly different. So we have to take all of these things into account. And the only way to do that is to talk about it.
Absolutely. And when we start to also recognize that there is this gap, like we want to start to find ways to decrease the gap. And we can do that by either, you know, changing the situation, which is something we cannot do too much right now. I mean, as far as like a global pandemic, but there's also a lot we can do in each and every day that we live in terms of who do I want to be and what can I do to decrease that gap. And so while there's a lot we don't have control over right now, there's also a lot that we do have control over. How do I want to show up with this day? Who do I want to be? What can I do to take care of myself? You know, we don't know where this is going to head, but we do know what today is going to look like. Probably a lot like yesterday and the day before that, but we get to choose who we want to be in that. There is some known in this, you know,
Yeah.
What can I do with that known? So we either try to like change the situation to match more what it is that where we are, we change ourselves. And a lot of changing ourselves is also just changing the way that we think about it, our interpretation of it, seeing ourselves that this is something that I have some power over, you know, I have some choice over. rather than it's happening to me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's almost like that distance is also all the things that we can't control. And if we focus more on all the things that we can control, which is what we're able to do in our homes or what we're able to do over video, what we're able to do just in realigning our expectations for ourselves instead of spending all that time wallowing in this frustration and the sadness. Not saying it's not appropriate to feel those things, but are you spending more time just being sad and feeling stuck that you can't change it? Or can you kind of shift some of that into even just changing how you feel about it? Even just saying, there's absolutely nothing I can do, and I'm going to be a miserable potato on the couch for the next 2 months, and that's okay. Even saying that's okay at the end of that is a lot better than saying like, man, I wish things were different. Like, there's nothing I can do. I have to sit here on the couch. Like, you don't have to. If you want to, you can. I don't want to do that. I want to make use of my time. I want to come out of this better than I was before. And I think that kind of leads into the next poll we wanted to ask too, which is also more about the positive side of this. We also want to know how people are using this opportunity to advance themselves or to enhance their relationships, and just shifting their perspective around what's going on. So we wanted to take that poll too for just a moment. And again, I like that Monika's taking charge of the pausing part, because even I'm forgetting to pause. I'm like, oh, we have all these things we need to do in this webinar, so let's get them done. But I'm also going to take a breath here, and I need to pause. I need to actually catch my breath because I'm just ranting and raving at this point. So again, let's take a breath. We'll post that poll and then kind of talk about that afterward too.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to actually do something a little different this time, and I actually want you to take just a moment, just 15 seconds before I put the poll up, so that you can reflect for yourself, like, what have you noticed as a result of this pandemic and it's the quarantine that has shown up for you? Maybe something surprising you never expected that has been actually a good realization or a good experience. So just take a few seconds right now. If you'd like to close your eyes, I'm a big fan of that. And just sort of connect with that. And here's the poll. There may be some other things that have shown up for you that's not on the poll, and we also invite you to use the chat or questions and add to these. These polls, I realize, are limited to 10 responses, which is probably a good thing in this format, but we want to hear from you if there's other things that have shown up for you for any of these questions.
I think it's funny looking back at these poll answers too, that if you put any of those or follow any of those with "in a pandemic," it kind of makes it funny. Like peace in a pandemic, relief in a pandemic, greater connection in a pandemic when we're all forced to stay at home. It seems like silly and stupid, and I get why a lot of people look at therapists like, oh, wishy-washy, whatever, but we really mean like you can actually have all of these things on this list in a pandemic. It's just about how you get there and how you want to use this time.
It reminds me of those Chinese fortune cookies when you open them up and you have to end everything off is in bed. Did you ever play that game?
Yep. You will have great fortune in bed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Many adventures await you in bed.
In bed.
Yes. All right. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results. Gratitude. Gratitude is the number one thing. Yep. If you care to share, I would love to hear from you some of the things that you have been grateful for that's shown up for you. And again, you can use that if you want to, but we invite you to, because we would love to hear from you, like through the chat and also the Q&A. If any questions come up at any point, we would love to be able to respond to those. So let's take a look at some of the other things on the poll. So gratitude was number one.
I think it's hilarious that there's 0 for mental clarity.
Or creativity.
That's funny. Oh, is there zero for creativity too?
No, 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 16%. Sorry, I was,
Oh yeah, they've got some.
my pull box is too small.
Relief only has one. Yeah, relief and mental clarity. I can feel that. I don't know if my mind's more clear. It's definitely more hyperactive. I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more going on up here.
Mm-hmm. I know I have been personally sort of on a wave where there are, I would say most of the times I'm feeling a lot of gratitude myself. And I have actually welcomed this pause. And I know this is not everybody's experience. This is mine. But I didn't realize how much I was running around in my life and always chasing the clock, and I got to be here and I got to be there. And it was really hard for me to live in the moment. I was always in this like frenzy of like running late, running late, running late, gotta go. And it showed up with my relationship with my daughter also. It's like, come on, let's go, let's go. And this has been just like, I think a nice reminder, like, where am I running off, like rushing off to all of the time? I don't know how much value half of it was adding to my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to say that this has been nice for me personally to be able to like just sit here with my daughter, you know, play some Legos and just be. She's
For
also
sure.
been benefiting greatly from that.
Mm-hmm. We've gotten some answers from people. I was just going to read out. We've got gratitude for life, for family, for the little things, for being able to work from home, for having a roof over my head, food to eat. I made a social media post a couple weeks ago about that, actually, that at the bare minimum, all we really need to be okay in life is to have really our breath. I mean, really, at the very, very least, we just need to be able to breathe, because that means we're living, but also just food, water, shelter. I tell everybody, if you have food, water, and shelter, you are enough to be okay, at least to get you through to the next day. And so for the people that are really, really struggling, I've been focusing on some of those things too. We've also got grateful to be connecting with friends via Zoom, friends I not usually see together, which I think is also really cool. I've been able to connect with some people I haven't talked to in a couple years, and I've heard that kind of across the board, just people finally using this opportunity to connect with people, which is really, really neat. And the opposite end of that makes me mad that I'm seeing so many people connecting in the streets, and they're like standing 6 feet away with their little masks on, but just like random strangers talking to each other. I'm like, you wait until now to like stop and talk to people on the street. I've been doing that since I was like 5, but nobody's congratulated it for me for doing it. So whatever. Stable job, good health, even if it could be better. This person said overall health, even if it could be better. I like that. First time in my life I haven't worried about job or finances, and that was without a pandemic. So feeling beyond blessed for job security and professional strides. There's a lot of really good answers. All experiencing a sense of reevaluating what in our lives is really essential. I think that was a really big point that you and I wanted to bring up today too. Yeah, just using this to really define meaning for ourselves, and taking a good look at what you're missing in your life. You know, I've seen, like, I love my job and I love what I do every day. Is it taxing and does it wear me down mentally when I do too much of it? Absolutely. But being at home, like stuck at home now, has been also a blessing for me, because I get to do what I love and I get to be in a place that I love with people that I love. So everything is great for me. But for the people that work in jobs that they don't particularly like, that are now having to do their job at home, not surrounded by the coworkers, not surrounded by like all the fun distractions at work, like they realize I don't really enjoy what I'm actually doing. Just plugging this information into a spreadsheet doesn't really do much for me unless I have the team that I'm working with that makes it all worth it. So just kind of re-examining what's really important. I really like that.
Yeah. I do want to take a moment because there's a question that came in, and one of our attendees had asked about, you know, that in some ways this idea of wanting to be better coming out of this, that idea creates some anxiety. And, you know, there are going to be days where we're unproductive. Maybe the entire time is like less productive than normal. And something that I've been also talking to my clients that I work with about is, and my friends, is like, that's okay. I think listen to what your body is needing right now. I think there is some push or pressure, like I'm going to pick up a new hobby and I'm going to start watching YouTube videos on how to start knitting. it's okay. Like we don't need to do anything with this time. Listen to yourself, listen to your body and what it is that you need. If it needs more rest, if it needs to binge watch on Netflix, if it needs to just reflect, and maybe just read a quiet book that has nothing to do with going anywhere and being productive or career or anything in your life, do it. I don't think that there's any right or wrong way to do this time, to do you during this time.
Yeah, and I really mean, I like that question too, because that's one of the big challenges a lot of people are facing is they're like, I don't want to use this time to make a hobby. I don't want to use this time to like learn a new language. That's okay too. I'm the kind of productivity that I'm kind of boasting for or advocating for is not just productivity with your behavior, like what you're doing or what you're accomplishing. It's also productivity in your mind with saying it's enough. Like I'm being productive enough by working 80% on one day, working 15% the next day, and then working 0% the day after that, just because I don't really want to. So I think even being productive with how you're talking to yourself is just as much, if not more, of the battle than what you're actually accomplishing through this time. Because you're not going to accomplish absolutely anything if you're just sitting there beating yourself up.
Yeah, that compassion piece and that understanding. As I said earlier, I feel like I'm riding a wave, and how do we just let go? There's no answers, there's no boat, but just go with the flow and in some ways surrender and trust and float through this, understandably, while still taking care of all of our basic needs, which I know for some people is more challenging, understandably. And so, we want to make this a space. I know we're about out of time, and we really want to make this a place where we can start having these conversations. I know this is just more of an intro, but we would like to hear from you. Please email us. Again, if there's any last minute tips or chats, we want to hear from you and be able to start having conversations. We do plan next week to talk about dating. Another therapist from the practice, Kayleen Penn, will be joining me to have that conversation. And every week we're going to have some new conversations and go a little bit more in depth with a specific topic area. We realize that a half an hour goes by really fast as well. So, yeah. So, we're going to start to wrap up, but some of the things that, we just want you to take away with all of this is, to just be kind to yourself during this time. There's a lot of different ideas or opinions on how to do this time, but I don't think that there's any hard and fast rules. But be safe is one of them I would like to promote, but whatever that looks like, and how do you take care of yourself? Because we are going to be a little bit overstressed, and we're in different territories, so we just may need a little bit more rest, and that's okay.
Absolutely. I wanted to also offer as an ongoing part of this theme of pausing, a mindful reflection to kind of close on for this webinar, and hopefully we can do this in future times too. But I wanted to do an awkward ask and just ask that if you're comfortable closing your eyes and just taking a few moments with me to breathe and to reflect. I'm going to do like a mini guided meditation on this idea of surrendering or kind of letting go. So I'm going to be the first one to be awkward and close my eyes so that you can feel like it's okay too. And so I just want everybody to take a moment and just breathe, just kind of get connected to your normal breath. We're not trying to slow it down or speed it up. We just really want to pay attention to our breath here in this moment. And especially during this really crazy and scary time that we're all living through, I think it's important for us to check in with our breath every once in a while and recognize whether we feel like we're being pulled and thrashed back and forth by the confusion and by the chaos that this storm is bringing to us, and taking a moment again to check in with the breath and try to feel if you can shift your perspective to riding the wave and understanding that right now there is no way to control it. There is no way to make this less scary or to make this less frustrating or confusing. The only thing we can do is go with it and ride the wave and let it take us the way it's going to anyway, and just do it a little bit less stressfully. And then that way we can surrender. We can allow ourselves to be okay, no matter what kind of negativity or scary things we're experiencing in these moments. And just knowing that at any moment you can return to your breath. And as long as you're breathing, you're okay too. So just take a few moments to breathe and even thank yourself for taking this time. As long as everybody hasn't dropped off the call because I decided to do a meditation on this, but I think it's okay. And then whenever you're ready, you can return to the room. Thank you all for doing that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so thank you again for joining us today, and we hope that you will join us for some future sessions. The next one is Monday, May 4th at 5 o'clock p.m., not 5:30, so 5 o'clock with Kayleen Penn. We're going to be talking about dating during the pandemic. And again, thank you so much for taking a pause with us today. And always remember, there's power in the pause. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night.